Right. You're gonna work. All right, 5 seconds.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Delphin Law Info Show, where we discuss any subject that might provide you with information that can help you or help others, such as your family or the community. To join our program, please call us at 564-5470. That's 337-564-5470. Or you can just email us at info@delphinlaw.com. info@delphinlaw.com. I'm attorney Ezra Pettis Jr., and my co-host is the lovely Miss Danielle Claiborne, and we're both members of the Delphin Law Office here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, Ezra. Stop trying to butter me up. Today we are happy to announce that we have live in the KPPM studios a person well known to our audience, and that is Reverend J.L. Franklin. For the second segment of our show, to tell us about the ongoing Juneteenth celebration is Lake Charles' very own Miss Diana Ross of the Southwest Louisiana Center for Health Services. But first, we're going to visit with Pastor Franklin. Pastor Franklin is currently serving as the president of Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action Incorporated, and he's here to share what's on their agenda for this organization and how this relates back to our community. I want to give you a little rundown of a little bio, very condensed, about our Pastor Franklin. Reverend J.L. Franklin was born in Pineville, Louisiana. He's a native of Alexandria, Louisiana. He graduated from Peabody Magnet High School in Alexandria, Louisiana, and continued his education at Bishop College in Dallas, Texas, majoring in religion with a minor in Christian education. He holds a Master of Arts degree with an emphasis in pastoral ministry from Louisiana College, Caskey School of Divinity. He has been a pastor for 27 plus years. He's a member of the advisory board for Bishop College Historical Society in Dallas, Texas, and also a member of the advisory board of Southern University Cooperative Extension Program in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He served as the president of the NAACP branch of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and he currently serves as the executive director of the Louisiana Community Coalition. Welcome, Pastor Franklin. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you, Danielle, and Ezra, both of you. It is a extreme joy to be here, and certainly want to give a shout out to Attorney Mark Delphin. God bless him and bless the Delphin Law Firm.
Well, thank you, Pastor. We appreciate that.
Pastor, would you start out telling us about the organization of the Louisiana Community, of Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action?
Well, Danielle, it's a joy. First of all, there is the Louisiana Community Coalition for Action. There's the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action. Our mission statement is very simple. It is to make certain that the light of democracy is on and will remain on in our local communities by. Here's what we do. We're standing up for voters' rights, civil rights, or equal rights in the areas, most importantly, in the areas of education, political involvement, healthcare, adequate housing, and of course, economic and social justice. That's the first part of that. But then the other part of that, of course, is to engage simply in a meaningful conversation, understand each other in love, and to erase in this climate the stigmas of racial inequalities and discrimination in places simply where we live and where we breathe. But that's the whole scope of what the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action is about. And we're freedom fighters. And so we want to make a difference in our own backyard.
How long have you been a member of this organization?
Well, we've launched this organization. It's been a little over a year now. And so it's at the APEC. We're right in the heart of our community. Of course, we have the Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, whereby we're launching branches all across the state. And we're excited about that because it gives us an opportunity to affect change in our own neighborhoods. So we're excited about this effort, excited about the support we're receiving.
And I guess it's just important from what I'm gathering from your pastor is that this is a grassroots organization, right?
Absolutely.
You know, dealing with the individuals that can make a difference in the community, because these are not only community leaders, but those that are involved, right? You're involved with local law enforcement and so forth. So tell us a little bit about that, because I know police shootings have been kind of a hot button issue here.
Well, and let me just go back, Ezra, because of how we organized this process. We will simply, for a short period of time, served as president here in the local NAACP, and took a page sort of out of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s portfolio, being that he was on the executive committee in 1955 in Montgomery of the NAACP. But, Dr. A.D. Nixon, who was the president of that branch, Dr. King seemingly wanted to go a little farther, as with Mrs. Rosa Parks, and of course they started the MIA, and then after the MIA, of course, then you had the SELC. But the NAACP is wonderful. I encourage everybody to still have membership, in contact with our state president, doing a tremendous job. But of course, we wanted to be right, just cut through the red tape, get right in front, and make seemingly a difference with all of the actions and the activity that take place in our community. And let me just say, we want to, first of all, when there are agencies that are doing the right thing, we support them. Some people may look at us from another perspective, but we're not afraid to say we're agitators. We want the same thing everybody else wants. We want to make sure that our community and our people of color, and African Americans, that we get our fair share. We fight for that. There's no doubt about that. But this organization allows us the opportunity to, as I said, if it's education, if it's something viable, if it's something we believe wholesomely in, we support. We've done that. We've sent letters over to the superintendent of public schools here, Carl Brookhouse. If there's something that we simply are in favor of, something we support, we have no problem about that. But when there are issues that concerns us, then we make our voices known, and we have to do that because, Jesus said that they that are whole, they need no physician. And so he said, I came to seek and to save those who are lost. And so when we find the discrepancies and we find these injustices, these actions and these acts, then of course we're determined to do our very best to not let it happen in this fashion. So that's why we believe wholesome in the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action. What we're doing basically is building a community of justice and equality for everybody.
And it's definitely akin to what you're saying about the NAACP and the work that they try to do, but this is, like you said, more localized, more involved in the community in Southwest Louisiana, which is great. But on a national level, and it's interesting because we're talking about this, but I had to explain to some people the other day, what the NAACP actually stood for and what it stands for today. Because now with so much, I'm not gonna say, of course, fake news, that is a stigma that nobody wants to own, but misinformation.
Sure.
As everybody gets online and they Google this, Google that, they don't find out what the source of the information is. So some people thought of it as being a radical group, but when actually it's not the case. Right?
No, it isn't. And our group is in the same fashion that with the NAACP, there are a lot of loopholes in terms of you have to go through to get authority to process, to move forward, and to get involved, deeply involved. In our case, with our organization, we go right at it. We get the facts, and that's key to everything. But we can act quickly, and that gives us a cut through the red tape. Cut through, sometimes it may mean getting authority from the state president at NAACP, and that's protocol. And because of the organization, you certainly want to have integrity. But in our case, there are issues that are at home, and we have to move quickly. Once we get the facts, then we're not afraid to be on the scene immediately. And that's the plus that Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action provides.
And just for our listening audience, when Reverend Frank Franklin says that he wants to be on the scene immediately, if there's a social injustice or something that needs a talking point, a lot of times we'll see it on the news one day, and then 2 days later, everybody's forgotten about it, right?
And with our Southwest, because, let me qualify, there's some organizations that are more local in terms of their out of boundary. The NAACP is a good example. That might be of Lake Charles, which means there's no other authority that act, because we've got a wide range. We're in Southwest Louisiana. We were involved, we were asked to be involved in a situation that occurred in Dorita. And so whenever there's a situation that takes place anywhere in this state, we have the umbrella and the authority to move, whereby in some other cases, such as NAACP, then they are more localized, or either the state gets involved, giving them an umbrella to act. But in our case, our territory is all over the state of Louisiana, and so we take pride with that, and we can act. And as I said, we have a Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, which gives us uniting and starting chapters all over the state. So it's a privilege. We deal with every single issue. You know, the issue you saw in January, the issue with the police shooting. We were involved in that process. So we've been, and we still are involved in that process because we believe it was absolutely wrong, whereby the young man, Mr. Justin Landry, who was shot by the police. We have real convictions about that. We saw the taping and the viewing from the DA, and we spell it out because, you know, we've had a history in this city of killings, of mental illness, and we've got a new police chief now. But of course, these issues, you know, at play, and nobody wants to sort of kick the can down the street. Right. But these issues are very real, and they're very prevalent. And you know, when the DA mentioned, of course, he said that he felt that the family perhaps failed Mr. Landry. He felt that the community did. But I said, no, let's add to that. The Lake Charles Police Department failed him because this guy's not running. You know, he's not running toward the police. He's running from the police, and yet, you know, there are bullets all over his body. And so that's more than just a miscalculation. It's a miscarriage of justice, and we have to stand against that, no matter where it is. And let me qualify to say this, that, you know, my brother is a part of law enforcement, and I have a great respect for law enforcement and law enforcement officers. It's an awesome task and an awesome challenge that they have. But every now and then, you've got, you know, some person on the force who gives the force a black eye, and we have to stamp that out when it occurs.
Let me just do a station identification, and we'll get right back into that. Reverend, thanks so much. You're listening to the Delphin Law Info Show on KPPM 93.5, and we're very, very fortunate to have our special guest live in studio today, well-known local pastor J.L. Franklin, who is also the president of the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action Incorporated. To reach Pastor Franklin, you can call his office at area code 337-215-5353. Or you can email him jlfran3998@aol.com. So, go ahead.
Pastor Franklin, I was going to ask you, since I know you guys, obviously, membership is important in order to do your task and you know, push those forward. Are y'all looking for new members?
Always.
Okay. How does one become?
They can simply call, as you mentioned, be short. It's not just for membership, but it's the hot button. And we do, we're fighting for people, and we, you know, some people don't like the term fight, but it's a real term. We like change agents, you know, persons who want to make a difference in our community, right where we are. And everybody should be a part of some civic group. And there are those who are part of a fraternity, those who are part of sororities, the Masonic lodges, and all of that. But why not be a viable part of a community effort that's dealing with issues to affect change where we are? And so, if a person is interested in becoming a member, simply the number is 337-215-5353. We'd love to have you to be a part of our efforts.
And you call that a change agent? Is that what you...
A change agent, you know, we need progressive-minded persons who are not afraid. I mean, you think about it when we look at the struggles of our forefathers, and I go back periodically and I look at what they endured, look at what, you know, what we're doing today in terms of how we're trying to affect change. And you look at the marches, you look at the boycotts, you look at how they were able to accomplish a greater good and a sacrifice. And so we can't take for granted those sacrifices of our forefathers. And so this group allows us. So there are some people who think perhaps, you may have 50 cents more than the other person, maybe you think that you've arrived. But there are a number of issues I hear all the time. We get calls about every issue you can possibly imagine, whether it's in the school system, whether, if it's out at the plants. We get people who call about, injustices and discrimination and issues of that sort, wanting us to take part. So, if things are well with you, fine. That's why we need you to be a part of the organization to help us weed out this kind of activity, because all of us ought to be able to enjoy a decent quality of life.
Sure. And you had mentioned something, I just want to kind of go back, Pastor, and you said something that's extremely important, is that you guys, the coalition follows up and they stick with making people accountable, organizations accountable for actions that have occurred. Because like I said, everything's a sound bite, and then you don't hear anything else about it again, right?
Right.
So it's important to follow up with families and just being active in the community to ensure that things like that don't happen again.
We deal with the sticky issues, and our organization, some people tend to say, well, we say what people think.
Right.
There are people who think it. They're too scared, they're too afraid, but we're not. We say it, and we stand by what we say. Whether it's an issue, respect law enforcement. There's an issue, and I have a great respect for IDA, but if IDA does something and has done something, we dealt with the unanimous coalition jury verdict and issues. We wrote letters, confronted that issue. If it's an issue with the police department, we commend, as I said again, we commend the police chief and commend, and there's some hard work abiding people, but when there are things that disturb us, if it's the issue concerning, the Confederate statue, we dealt with that. Sure. We're not afraid to deal with the very core issues. And so that's what makes us who we are. And we have a whole litany. If it's a school board issue, I served on the school board, by the way, and the people in this community know an issue regarding, one of the long-standing superintendents, and we were able to get the board, of course, not to renew his contract, because again, all of our children, we have 33,000 children in this parish, and so every child deserves a quality education. You fight for that. Sometimes when you fight for that, it can be challenging and viewed upon as a sense of being radical. But if it affects change, then so be it.
And so basically the coalition doesn't stop with, going against, legislation or, because I know you guys are also fighting in the House.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
Some of the things, because I know you have a lot of experience and extensive time in the capital of our great state. But going back to what you were saying about the school board, I guess that is really where this coalition is grassroots. We're dealing with the young, next generation of people, and showing them that you can, affect change if you want to, and if you try, right?
Well, as we've looked at our schools, and we look at the failing schools. This has been an ongoing issue, and it's going to continue to be until the board rolls up its sleeve and said, all our kids deserve a quality, good quality of education. And of course, when we see failing schools, and we're hoping, because now they've got a new, what we call third zone director, and Dr. Marcus Jackson, and so we've met with him and hoping we can pull those scores up, but it's going to be a challenge. There's a grant. Those schools, we hope that all of those schools turn around overnight, but that's impossible. But we're praying, we're pulling for him to go into these schools and give it the best. But at the end of the day, it's not Dr. Jackson who will make those decisions. Ultimately, it's the school board. And you have to remember how this board is. You have basically, it's 4 African Americans who are on the board, and you have 11 whites. And basically, you need 2/3 vote to get anything accomplished. So basically, you can lock up the African Americans, put them in a closet, and you can still have room for quorum.
It's a numbers, yeah, right.
It's tough. But so what they do have, they perhaps not a vote, but they have a voice. And it's the power of the voice to make sure that you are expressing the issues to affect change for not just our children, but all children, and make them understand that we're all in this equation together.
So does the coalition give out, like, I don't know, say, notification for these types of things so they can attend these school board meetings or any of these important events so that they can be a part of having a voice?
Yeah, we're growing, and as I said, this for a little over a year now. We've done quite a bit. But again, we commend, we don't badger. When we see those who are doing a wonderful job, as I said, we commend them. So we commend when things affect us and there's improvement in our quality of life for our children. But of course, right now, presently, we have 13 African American schools, but basically they're more that are on the brink of failure. And unless you have, quality teachers, unless we go into these schools, unless the school board is serious, not just about the schools that are in South Lake Charles, but you're looking for all our schools because they all affect, our quality of life. And we've got to roll up our sleeve. The board has to roll up its sleeve. We can't be territorial concerning our children or our schools. We have to decide we're going to make a real difference in our community. So it involves all our community in our quality of life. And let me just say this too, Ezra. It's important not just for us as the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition to be involved, but every elected official ought to be involved in education. In urban cities, Chicago, basically, or if it's New York, you're having your mayor who are running your schools, basically. And so you ought to have, whether it's police jury, it shouldn't be just school board members or just community groups, but your elected officials. I think something I've always been impressed with, one of our former governors, in great respect, served on her transition team, Ms. Kathleen Bandelow Blanker, and here's what she said. She said, basically, education is economic development. So if you talk about quality of life, there's not a person that shouldn't have an interest in public education. True. So it should be.
Seems to make sense. It's a fairly simple equation, but
it ought to be. So everybody ought to be engaged, talking about and making sure that our schools get what they need, because it raises, again, all our quality of life. Now, here's what we can do. We can pay on the front end, sure, or we can pay on the back end, and it's a little steeper on the back end. And I think, my mother used to say years ago, get an ounce, of prevention, a pound of cure. So it's better to do it and to work hard and to be consistent and to mandate change on the front end, because after we don't like what's on the back end. And we're seeing it in the news today with the killings and the shootings, the crime, and it's these African American, of course that's been portrayed this week in the media, and you can rest assured where these kids, what schools that they've come from. And family, God forbid. But it's important that we key in to make a difference there.
Right.
Pastor Franklin, what I have on here, some of the items that are on your agenda that you're currently working on or working to effect change. Term limits. You laugh.
Well, that's interesting because the state of Louisiana in 1995 imposed term limits for our legislators, President of the governor, to serve two terms, and of course lieutenant governor. But in 2012, the state on referendum, of course, voted all of our school board members their term limit, so they only can serve with 3 terms, which amounts to 12 years. The same for legislators. And what's interesting, legislators, they can serve, 3 terms in both houses.
Right.
And so those are term limits there. And then there are the term limits for boards and commissions. So that came about in 2008. So persons who are appointed to boards and commissions get midterms there. We don't have, let's be honest, we don't have term limits in Congress. We don't have term limits, for U.S. Supreme Court. We don't have term limits in our local government in terms of city council. We don't have term limits in police jury. So you can just stay there as long as you want. It becomes a popularity contest. And when you do that, we began to someone quoted something by saying, you stay there long enough, you start acting like little kings and queens. And so it's important to have,
Complacency for sure.
yes, we get into that mode of complacency, and someone said that complacency is the kiss of death. So that's why it's important for us to make sure. And then it was, who was it, Lord Acton said in writing a letter to Bishop Creighton in 1887, he said these words: "The power corrupts absolute, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." So you don't want folk to stay there forever. Make a difference and let somebody else, I mean, new blood, let somebody else go and make a difference thereafter.
Yeah. And I also share that school of thought with you, Pastor, mainly because sometimes generationally you need a change.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, things change. When I first started college, we were using floppy disks, hard disks, and then when I graduated college, we were using jump drives. So just in that short amount of time, well, not that short, but like college, but in that short amount of time, technology changed that quickly, and so of course everything else that's around us, the way we communicate changed.
Sure.
Text messages,
Sure.
Phone calls turned into text messages, emails turned into calls and so forth, and just down the line. So if you are, let's say, you've been somewhere for 20 years, you've been getting elected 20 years, and you're still doing everything that you were doing in the 90s now, it's just a little bit difficult, right?
And you do what you always did, you get what you always got.
Sure.
And let me qualify to say this, of course, 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago, that Councilwoman Mary Barnes, she presented a resolution before the council for term limits. And there, as you well know, how our city council is, you have 3 African Americans and you have 4. It's 3 to 4. And of course, she brought that resolution before the council, and it was voted down 6-1. I've said it to them, and they get tickled by it, and I make no bones about it. I said, African Americans, it's 3 of them, and they're all over 70 years old. And when I look at the 70, I use the term as they're 210 years, and of course, only one person supported term limits out of that. So that's a bit, disturbing for us. And let me qualify, these are some wonderful people.
Sure.
They are wonderful people. I know them personally, and they have wonderful, beautiful personalities, but again, when it comes, you want to make sure you put the right people in the right place, but then, you don't want to stay there until you become a little king or queen.
Right. And we're going to do a station identification. Danielle has a question from the internet. Everybody out there in our listening audience, this is the Delphin Law Info Show, live on KPPM 93.5. Our very special guest today is well-known pastor, local J.L. Franklin, who is also the president of the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action Incorporated. And that's what we've kind of been talking about the last half an hour. So if you're just tuning in, it's been a great show so far. We picked Pastor Franklin's brain a little bit more before we let him go. To reach Pastor Franklin, you can call his office at 337-215-5353 or email him, jlfran3998@aol.com.
Yes, Pastor Franklin, this is the question. What will you do about, or what I guess maybe what coalition will do about starting up a course for drones?
Well, that's a little out of our zone right now. We're trying to deal with the zone where we are, but I wish we had the resources, and that's also, as I commend, it takes resources. So if someone desired to give so that we can stay right here on the front line in the fight, we need resources like every other organization. So I want to qualify. They want to have a desire to send a contribution to our organization. Please do so. We welcome that, and they can do that. Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, and there's a P.O. Box 836. It's here in Lake Charles. It's 70602. We guarantee every dime of that will be used to make sure we're right there on the front line in the fight, making a difference for our community.
And he says he's willing to help. Our
Great.
internet
Wonderful.
costs.
Wonderful.
I also wanted to ask you about so before you go, I think these are important issues at least to touch on. Abolishing the death penalty. I have a friend that he's a lawyer also, but he's with the LACDL, and they were working on that as well.
Well, I'm a part of, in fact, we have a conference call today with part of the Louisiana repeal. coalition, and we met today, and of course, the session is over. We had this matter that came before the House and the Senate, that Senator Dan Claytor presented a bill out of Metairie, and which is Bill 112. That bill, of course, was rejected in the Senate. But then we had another bill, similar passage, Bill 215, which Congressman, or State Representative rather, Landry, out of New Iberia. And he has been, as we all know, he's got a track record. I mean, he's been the superintendent of police in the state of Louisiana. And of course, he hinted against, but he said, of course, he has evolved and his heart has softened. And listen, I mean, this passage or this this bill that was presented in the House didn't have enough votes, but we're making progress, to say the least. But let's talk about that because, the Pope, Pope John Paul prior put this matter on the table initially to all the Catholics. Then, of course, Pope Francis went even farther. And so, the quality of life, and we have passages, and I hear people sometimes who are very passionate, and we respect their theological viewpoints. But I often remind ourselves, the great emancipator, Moses. Moses murdered a man, but I tell you what, God used him a great extent. We look at the woman in the New Testament that, the Bible says that such should be stoned. They brought her because saying that she had been caught in the very act of adultery, but basically said that the law says that she should suffer the death penalty. But Daniel, they brought the woman, but they didn't bring the man. But they said, of course, the word says that such said that, the law says that she should be stoned. These were the scribes and the Pharisees, but, Jesus says, hey, writing on the ground as though he heard them not, and finally when he did speak, he said, he that is without sin, cast the first stone. The quality of life, and God controls life and death. That's in his hand, not ours. And so we can't hide under a theological banner that gives us the right to take the life of someone. That's not our job. And, it didn't succeed in the House or the Senate this year. But I'm telling you, we are more excited about it. We're fired up about it because we're coming back in the House and the Senate next year, so they know it. This is a political year that mainly, all of they're going to be 55 new House representatives and senators. So nobody wanted to touch that. Everybody wanted to give the appearance. They are tough on crime. So for that, it was a bad year. But you can rest assured that our coalition with the repeal coalition in Louisiana, we're more excited about it. And you're going to continue to hear, and you can rest assured. And of course, our accommodations are to Congressman, State Representative Landry, because he's retired. Well, no, he's retiring, and he's done a tremendous job with his bill, and he's going to be sorely missed. But we're grateful for the support, and you can rest assured that's not going anywhere.
And you brought up a good point earlier about the coalition, and everything needs the universal lubricant of currency to operate. So just kind of talk to us, Pastor. Do you have anything in the works, any sort of fundraisers or events that the community can come out and get behind? And if not, what do you need in order to be able to do that? How do we get that going?
Well, every organization, if you're going to be effective, you need resources. So you cannot have an effective organization. Unfortunately, we need it. Church, you need it to do ministry. We need resources to be effective. And people can say all of the things they desire us to be about. We can't possibly be about those things without having these. And we commend those who go into the pockets, just like teachers do sometimes.
Sure.
Thank God I know the teachers are excited about the raise. $1,000, it's not, it's not $10,000, but
But it's a step,
It's
you know.
it puts them, close to the southern regional average, that kind of thing.
Right.
But teachers give, every average teacher go in their pockets, they're spending over $500 a year, on supplies.
Sure.
Well, in our case, if we're going to be effective, we have to have resources, and we're going to do things, no doubt about that, because the cause is too great.
Sure.
And we encourage all of the support we can get so that we can be effective.
And just to kind of just touch back on that, I mean, any other organizations who are out there and who want to do any kind of partnership or put some events together, I'm sure you guys will be welcome and opening to that.
Absolutely.
As well. I mean, that always have to be a sole effort, guys.
Absolutely.
We can always pool resources in order to help one another out, help these organizations.
And I was elated just maybe a couple weeks ago. Our state president of the NAACP, Mike McCallahan, and he and I were talking. He says, "Hey, we're going to collaborate. We're going to do some things together," which is,
Right.
which is we certainly appreciate that. In any organization, it doesn't have to. In terms of I leading the process, we believe in it in Canvas to be part of it.
Sure. So that's a public service announcement, ladies and gentlemen. If you have an event and you want someone to come in, help out, I mean, Pastor Franklin is an excellent guy. We're going to talk a little bit about his pastoral work, because we can't have you on the show and you not tell us about the Sunday pulpit that you occupy and have such a great following. So we'll talk about that. But if anybody wants to get in touch with Pastor Franklin and collaborate with him in the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action Incorporated, give him a call, 337-215-5353. Again, 337-215-5353, or email jlfran3998@aol.com.
And as we've cited, we have videos of again going to YouTube that we see all of our videos, issues that we are bringing up, we're dealing with, issue whether it's the Confederate statue there on the courthouse lawn. And I want to quote this, I want to go back, because my good friend, Mr. Whitman Rito, and in 2000, of course, he, after 4 trials, vindicated, of course, and now he's free, 2005, but 2003, that his legal defense team, George Kendall, Mr. George Kendall out of New York, wonderful, and they're wonderful people. Of course, Mr. Johnny Cochran served along with him, but Mr. Whitman Rito, I mean, and we have prayer rally. We sponsored a prayer rally here. It was the first, we'll forget it, the 1st of June, and many of the folk who were here came to the church and of course, participated. And we had Mr. Johnny Cochran as a special guest speaker. And I'm telling you, it was awesome. And then we marched from the church down to the courthouse to protest against that Confederate statue. And I'm excited, Ezra, because where you from, I have to. Our video we gave Mayor Mitch Landry, former mayor of New Orleans, that not just 1, not 2, not 3, but he led the council in 2014, 2015 to remove 4 Confederate statues there. So it represents racism, it represents Jim Crowism, white supremacy, and we have to rid ourselves of that. And so, but those are the kinds of issues on YouTube. You'll see all the videos, the issues that we are trying to make a difference. And we need all the support we can get to impact change.
Yeah, and a lot of that, Pastor, just trying to, I guess, do away with the divisiveness of certain things of our past, right? And I was talking to somebody just yesterday who was born and raised actually in Alaska. And, of course, that's 2 worlds away. When you got people in Alaska, you see interracial couples and racial children and so forth, and nobody really talks about race like we do in the South. And so they don't have some of the issues and talking points that we have here. So we got to be progressive, right? I mean, that's the key to it.
Absolutely. And I love the quote, of course, that Mitch Landry stated about his passion for removing those Confederate statues in New Orleans. He simply, said that these statues are not just stone and metal. He said, and he argued that they're not just, an innocent remembrance of the not history, but he said that these monuments. They purposely celebrated fictional, sanitized Confederacy, ignoring the death, ignoring the enslavement and the terror that it actually stood for. And so we gave Mitch a thumbs up,
Right.
of course. But I also want to say, because that's in New Orleans, but also a shout out was to Stephen Jackson in Shreveport, in
Right.
Caddo Parish.
Absolutely.
Because the Caddo Commission, I mean, Steve drove the Caddo Commission to remove the courthouse, the statue there on the courthouse in Shreveport. And of course, but you can rest assured that then, you know, the daughters of the Confederacy, they had filed suits.
Right.
And
Right.
Judge, one of the federal judges mentioned that the Confederate statue can be removed, but of course, again, the daughters of the Confederacy, they have appealed that process. But you can rest assured, it's coming down.
Right.
And coming down, all of the places, you know, in across the country. Austin, Texas, you know, Los Angeles, Louisville, Kentucky, you know, Miami, Florida, Tampa, Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida, you know, and we knew the issue that took place in Charlestonville, you know, Charleston. And so I wish, you know, knowing that it affects us, it hurts all of us, that this is reality. And so, but thank God, it's coming down.
Right. And that all goes along with staying the course, right, Pastor? Staying vigilant, staying on top of things, not allowing for, you know, just something to be a talking point, but actually action and continued action on the subject.
Absolutely.
Everyone, you're listening to the Delphin Law Info Show.